Woo, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star here, but, well, I love when I get to say this, not alone, because I am here with the best, and of course the best means that it's me, Brian, Ellen, and Stephanie. Woo!
I just got a flashback to Free Talk Live where it was like, hey, Mark, Ian, and Stephanie. And we'd go around in a circle.
Oh, yeah. We used to do that, too, because I was on with you then.
God,
so actually, this is all Free Talk Live alumni.
Wow.
Here, you know.
No. Let's just forget about that part of our past.
Yeah. Right. Well,
We've
we're
moved
not
on
gonna
to
go
better
around in
things.
circles. Yeah, and say our names. We've done enough of that.
there we go. And that's why we're doing Sovryn Tech. But anyway, we are here for the Star Trek update, which is always a ton of fun to do. Sometimes I do them solo. Other times I get to do it with the two of you because you two are, I mean, really major Star Trek fans. Of course,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be hanging out with you if, if that wasn't the case. No, it's not true. But anyway, yeah, speaking of hanging out, boy, so this is getting late. Did I say this earlier? Because I feel like I'm getting deja vu here. But we're recording this late at night. No, I did not say that this time around. We're recording this late at night. So this is getting released on a Wednesday. And actually, I just want to announce that your Wednesday Q&A is actually going to come out on Thursday this week, but you're getting this episode on Wednesday. But
I don't think they'll mind.
No, I don't think they'll mind at all. They'll love it. So, but yeah, kind of a late night because we just got back. Boy, we had a nice little picnic.
We did.
It was the best picnic. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, it was the best picnic with the best, and but it was great because we had, well, I mean, there was a nice waterfall nearby. There was all kinds of stuff. It was really,
yeah, we got some takeout food, and we went to a local waterfall. We brought a little picnic blanket and
rolled out
sat on the beach of the waterfall. It's not really a beach because it's not the ocean, but it was the bank of the waterfall, I guess.
It was
Yeah.
kind of sandy.
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
like some trees over us. It was really nice.
We rolled out the blanket, took out the takeout food, and
Ate some sushi.
yeah, actually though, funny thing, we had to do it all with our hands because.
Yeah, we didn't get any chopsticks. I actually engineered some chopsticks out of some actual sticks.
Yeah, I thought about doing that, but I was like, I don't want to eat from sticks. I'd rather just eat from my fingers. But it was a good idea.
It was a tough choice between the fingers and the sticks, but eventually I ultimately decided on the sticks.
Well, you had the seaweed salad, which is hard to eat with your fingers because that's so leafy.
Yeah, I would have just felt so uncouth. I don't know.
Kind of rewilding.
I felt all classy making those chopsticks.
Yeah, it was.
You did a hell of a job.
Really progressive.
I could have used, like, if I really wanted to get fancy with it, I could have, like, scraped off the bark on, like, a rock and, like, whittled them into actual chopsticks. But I
Cleanse
was
them over a fire.
too hungry to do that. Yeah, could have made a friction fire and cleansed them through the fire. But I just really wanted to eat.
Yeah, but it was really nice. It was a nice time, and I can't really remember the last time I really ate out in nature like that. I mean, that was.
Oh my God. And talk about a view. We were like looking out over this waterfall and you could see the sun setting behind the tree line. It was amazing.
It was awesome. It was really beautiful. That was a really nice time. So anyway, we're here to talk some Star Trek. Enough of that. And Star Trek Voyager particularly. And what we're going to do is a top 3 of our episodes, our picks for the show. And well, what we'll do is, so we did this before for Deep Space Nine a few months back. And I kind of learned my lesson with that one, where the best thing to do is to have each of us do one at a time. And then like everybody do number 3, then everybody do number 2, then everybody do number 1. So we're not going to do it all at once. That way everybody gets kind of like fair time to talk and not one person's talking for 30 minutes or something. But then I want to get into really, I guess what Voyager kind of meant to us, or maybe that's the way to start it out a bit. Is like what did we think of Voyager overall? I am up to date, just to let people know. Probably for July's Star Trek update or maybe August, I will. I did listen to the new James Swallow book for Star Trek Discovery, which is called Fear Itself. That's all about Saru. I'll be doing a review of that, and then also I have the comic book reviews to do because boy, the Star Trek's really shining as far as comics go, but we'll save all that for another time. So, all right, do we want to start off talking about like where does Voyager sit in the ranking of Star Trek TV shows maybe? And
yeah, sure, I could talk about that.
And like just, what did Voyager mean to you? Like what was, what was the big deal about it? You want to start off, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think Voyager is one of my favorite Star Treks because it had just so many identifiable characters for me. I mean, all the Star Trek has identifiable characters, but like in particular, the character of Captain Janeway, like just that a woman can be captain and did such a fantastic job and was so smart and brought so much to the table, but didn't take any shit. It was great. It was really awesome to see that. And then also, like, I think a lot of us, maybe who listen to this show, we grew up like kind of feeling like we didn't fit in. A lot of people who like Star Trek in general, right? They grew up feeling like they didn't fit in, and maybe like they were almost an alien in some ways. And so I think it's easy for a lot of Star Trek fans to identify with the sort of alien characters. But like, especially Seven of Nine, like when she was learning how to like try to date and like go about the human customs, having not been like raised in human society and not having a clue, and just looking at all those traditions and social norms like kind of from the outside, I really strongly identified with that, and I thought that was just really cool to see the sort of the exploration that was done through her character.
Let me ask you quick. I mean, how important do you think Seven of Nine was? I mean, because she doesn't come into like the fourth season.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think the show like went to another level when she came on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think she was really pivotal to the show.
Which was kind of a big deal, like when Worf came into Deep Space Nine in season 4. I know that was a big deal for you, Stephanie, as well.
No, she was almost like Data, I think. In fact, there's a meme, and people won't get it unless you're like into Myers-Briggs and you're also a Star Trek fan. But actually, your co-host on the Star Wars updates, Robin, shared this meme with me once, and I thought it was brilliant and really funny. It said like INTJ, coldest human, and it had a picture of Seven of Nine, and then it said INTP, warmest machine, and it had a picture of Data. And I was like, oh my god, that's so true.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I think Star Trek shines particularly well when there's a character on board that can like be either a critique or a critique on the human condition. You can have someone that's like exploring what humanity is, like a Data, a Spock, a Worf even, or a Seven of Nine. Like, you always kind of want those characters in there.
Totally. I mean, that's the whole point of Star Trek, like, is to be able to get away with asking questions that you can't ask as like a human character about human society, but you can ask as an outside character.
Yeah, someone that's either not human or is somehow detached from their humanity.
Partially human. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what I loved about the Seven of Nine character was like she also had a hard time communicating with humans like on the emotional side too. Right. Like she didn't smile, she didn't understand small talk, but and that's something that like, for me growing up that was really hard too. So that's such a fascinating part of Star Trek is like as a person, you're expected to know these things, which is part of the reason why you can't ask it. But, like, yeah, in this show, they certainly dive into all of those questions, like, even stuff that you kind of take for granted.
Oh, yeah,
I think
absolutely.
They really did a great job in Star Trek of giving, like, nerdy people characters to identify with.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so popular with nerds, because... Yeah, like, they just, they had characters that were, like, unemotionally expressive, right? They like Vulcans, they had characters that were kind of like like a caricature of like a greedy businessman obsessed with profit, like the Ferengis. Like they just had a lot of different characters that showed like different sides of what humans can be like, I guess you could say.
Sure.
And I think that was really interesting for some people who had trouble sort of getting humans, like who aren't naturally people.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, I mean, Ellen, do you have any thoughts on what made like Voyager for you, like what was special about it, or maybe what wasn't special? What made it, not number one in your heart, perhaps?
Well, I agree with Stephanie. I really loved that there were multiple strong female characters. Like that's pretty rare as far as like science fiction goes, at least from my experience. But I guess what made Voyager as a series special to me was that the ship was transported entirely like to a different quadrant, and they had like no hope of getting home anytime soon. So they kind of just resigned themselves to struggling to survive. And, they're in a totally foreign place. They don't know where they are or who any of these characters are that they come into contact with.
Right.
All new races. They're running on limited means. And it seems kind of desperate, but they have to like rely on their skill and their wits collectively to make it through. And it just, to me, is amazing because they don't even like know if or when they'll make it home, but they're still trying. Like they're still assuming that they are going to. And that kind of, I mean, to me, that was the most inspirational part about it.
Sure.
And there were certainly times in the series where it kind of dragged on and they were relying on the holodeck for like exploring and having fun because, you're just traveling through the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Well, another thing about that is it speaks to Janeway's leadership because, like, she managed to somehow, like, herd cats enough that she took a crew that was half Starfleet and half, like, essentially anarchists and made them
the
all,
Maquis.
like, voluntarily, like, work together and follow her. And there was no mutiny or anything. And I thought that was just amazing that she could do that. There's really no, like, out there, there's no, like, we're going to throw you in the brig and drop you off at the nearest starbase, you know? They had to, like, work together, basically. And you can really only do that voluntarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this is a couple things that I think... So, sadly, the show didn't stick with the Maquis being, like, an unstable element aboard the ship. Like, I think that would have been cool. And, I mean, if I was to have any negatives myself of the show, that would be one of them, is that, like, the Maquis eventually just become part of the crew. Like, I mean, they really, like, meld in. And any storyline where they have to discipline a Maquis guy for just doing what has to get done, those kind of go away. What do you got, Ellen?
Well, I do remember there were a couple episodes where, like, the Maquis members would feel like they were being... I don't know, like they were being repressed in some way,
Sure.
or like
Not
maybe
treated
they
as
were
equals.
Yeah, they were being treated in a way that they didn't find fair, like collectively. I think we actually watched an episode recently where it was a former Maquis member that was suspect of committing a murder on the ship, and he's
Right.
like, "This is because I'm a Maquis or former Maquis, isn't it?"
Yeah. This is an episode with Brad Dourif, who is a very famous science fiction actor.
Very creepy.
Yeah, very creepy guy. He plays a lot of these roles. Some people, if they saw the movie Dune, they'd know him. He played Peter de Vries in that. And we watched that. That was a great episode where and I mean, really explored a lot of things. And that also explored, like, well, what do you do when you do have a killer aboard a ship of people and you're the only humans around? There's no star bases to take anybody. Like, how do you handle this?
Yeah.
It explored that quite a bit, which was interesting. But that, you were hitting on it, Ellen, with, like, for me, and I've talked about this many times, and because I was amazed that I posted about this on Instagram when I was, like, celebrating the fact that, I don't know, Voyager was celebrating 25 years or something like that from when it originally aired. And I said, I was like, this show could have been like the greatest porn ever. Like, it really could have, because, the one thing they did know is like, okay, well, we're this many light years away from the Alpha Quadrant. We're going to have to be a generational ship unless we find some kind of technology that can get us there or get us there faster, which you'd have various moments where that happens. Like, they should have been talking about, hey, all right, we got to start having babies, like, that should have been part of the conversation pretty quick.
Or settling on a planet. Like, that was also an option too.
Yeah, which sometimes you get a little bit of hints of that, but yeah, there's certain little sub-threads that should have been a bigger part of the show that they sadly weren't. But I mean, the potential was there, and certainly if you want to play, the fanfic in your own mind, you can run with it. I do want to ask you two, who your favorite character was on the show, but I'll give you a second to think about it. While you're thinking about it, I'll just say kind of what the show meant to me quickly, which is Voyager. So this is like you have the original series as far as like the order in which these things were released. You had the original series, you had the Next Generation, which finally would come out in 87. Then you have Deep Space Nine, which would be a few years after that, like in 91. And then you'd have Voyager about 4 years after that. Voyager was the first one where I was like, I think of myself as conscious, where like I recognized that it was going to come out and everything. And so I was like there for the party, like, oh, we're getting a new Star Trek show. And I was like really, really aware of that. As to where with Deep Space Nine, I was still a little too young to understand like what a first episode even was. Like those concepts were beyond me at the time. So this was really exciting. I was like, okay, no, this is going to be my Star Trek. This is going to be the one I'm going to grow up with. And it very much, I often say it's my favorite Star Trek, and that can shift, just like the order of Star Wars movies, what one's favorites are of those. But what really did it for me was this was Star Trek for Star Trek fans, in my opinion, until you get the character of 7 and 9. But this is where like you get I think it was very hard science fiction, a lot of it. They really explored some pretty wild ideas. But at the same time, again, it was also like a lot of the really cool things that we know about or that we have from Star Trek actually come from Voyager. Like a lot of the cool ships, like the USS Relativity time ship, or the Prometheus from Message in a Bottle, and all these really cool Starfleet things. A lot of that all comes from Voyager, interestingly enough.
They really got wild,
yeah.
Even for Star Trek.
Well, because it was able to build on top of all these years of other shows and all of that canon, all of those things that happen. And now we can take all that and now we can make shows that are actually about that, and that's what I kind of love about Voyager, is that it is Star Trek for Star Trek's sake. At the same time, that's what maybe a lot of people don't like about it, is that it's not as accessible as perhaps The Next Generation or the original series is, or maybe even as accessible as Deep Space Nine is. This is something where you kind of got to know your Star Trek, I think, to appreciate what's going on.
Yeah, especially since, like, one of the biggest challenges in the show is that, like, on this voyage home, without any support, like, they still have to uphold their code of ethics.
Which is interesting, and there's a couple points where they kind of question that. Like, what are we doing? What the hell does Starfleet regulations even mean out here anyway? And I'm like, absolutely. And I wish they would have explored that a little more too, but that is a part of it, certainly. And I did, so I guess I want to ask you now your favorite characters. I'm going to come out, I think I'm going to say Janeway. I love Captain Janeway. Like, I mean, I think she's just so cool on that show. In fact, I love how I think I can remember the first time I thought she was a great character is she was talking about Captain Kirk. And it was amazing to hear her talk about Captain Kirk or anybody to talk about Captain Kirk in the first place. But she like really respected what he was, even though she knew he's kind of like a product of a bygone era, within Star Trek. So I thought that was, that was really cool. But for a lot of reasons, I like Janeway, the female captain, the scientist being the captain instead of the warrior so much, among other things. She really kind of embodied what I think Starfleet is supposed to be. And yeah, I don't know. I just thought a tremendous character. So Stephanie, I'll go to you.
Janeway is definitely my pick as well.
Oh, okay.
But
cool.
The Doctor gets an honorable mention from me.
Sure. Yeah.
I love the character of the Doctor just because, and I think it's so appropriate that his name is just the Doctor, because they treat him as so disposable, and it shows how people. It shows like a lot of ethical questions about AI. And how it can become self-aware and stuff, and like there's so many episodes where the Doctor has like feelings about being trapped on the holodeck, and then eventually he gets that wrist bracelet where he can walk around and he's much happier, and then like his program will get like hijacked, and he's also like immune from things that affect the rest of the crew, and he has to like take command of the ship a couple of times.
Right.
So I just thought that character was really, really cool.
I will say quickly, originally he was going to have a name, and they would use his name later for his creator, but originally his name was supposed to be Doc Zimmerman. But then by the end of the first season, they were going to do an episode where they gave him a name finally, but then by the end of the first season they said, no, we're just going to leave him as the Doctor. And I don't know if that was some kind of like reference to Doctor Who, because Doctor Who his name isn't actually, Doctor Who, it's just the Doctor. So I don't know if they were kind of playing off of that or what, but yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up, but definitely a great character. Ellen, you were going to say?
Oh, so I do want to hear why your favorite character was Janeway, but I also wanted to ask, I've heard Janeway accused as being actually like an evil character in Star Trek Voyager.
Ooh.
Really? Who accuses that?
Well, my lab partner in chemistry.
Oh, wow, all right.
But so So he made the point that, like, Janeway made the decision that stranded them in the Alpha Quadrant. And, like, in the episode Tuvix, she actually made the decision to, like, kill Tuvix and separate it back into Tuvok and Neelix.
Oh,
and, you know, just things like that. So I'm wondering, like, how you would respond to that. But, yeah, I still would like to hear your reasoning about Janeway first.
I think your lab partner is a misogynist and is just shitting on Janeway because she's a woman, because she's a strong woman who has to make decisions. And whenever you're captain and when you're executive, when you're a boss, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. You got to make difficult decisions. You're put in situations which are no win, and you're going to get shit from all sides, especially from misogynist little trolls in chemistry lab.
Far be it for me to argue with the goddess of time, space, love, and beauty. I mean, that's wow.
I'm right. And you, by the way, you were
Me?
like, I love Janeway because she was worshiping Kirk, or she was giving respect to Kirk.
I thought that was cool. That was what like initially I was
yeah,
like,
but there's so
nice.
many great things about her besides her giving credit to a man.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. I was just trying to be quick. But yeah, no, I
check your bias, Brian.
Whoa. Yeah. Well, anyway. Wow. An evil character.
Well,
Yeah,
she's
that's-
pretty fearless. Janeway
She's
is.
fearless, but that doesn't make her evil. I think she always had the best interests of the crew in mind.
Well, I guess it's interesting that you say, like, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, and you're put in no-win situations sometimes. I guess that's true, and, like, I don't know what I would, like, honestly, in some of those episodes, I was like, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah. I mean, Cisco closed the wormhole.
Yeah.
Well,
In
you know-
Deep Space Nine, Picard did shit that was bad too. I'm sure you could think of. Kirk was a sexual harasser.
Well, there's arguments in feminism alone that go back and forth on that. But regardless, I mean, that's... Yeah, but I'm thinking about this more. I mean, Janeway has done some pretty... I mean, I don't have a problem with it because what most people consider evil, I call egoism. I mean, in I think what's going to be one of the top 3 episodes, perhaps, the series finale, Endgame. I mean, Janeway wipes out an entire fucking timeline, and she doesn't care. You know, like she's like, okay, no, we're gonna. I mean, spoiler alert, we're gonna go kill the Borg Queen, and this is the, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and however, I mean, that was crazy, for her to do that.
It's a pretty final decision, yeah.
In fact, also, like, there's the character of Captain Braxton, who's a time traveler, and like I think he calls it like the Janeway incident or something. And there's like 3 of them where she dramatically changed the timelines. Like she's known by Starfleet as
well-behaved
being a time
women rarely
problem.
make history.
Wow.
What can I say?
That is true.
Yes, that is a fact. Holy shit! All right, well.
I'm glad I asked this
I'm
question.
defending my sister there.
I love it. Wow. But I mean, these are things you don't hear this from the boss too often here. This is this is why they call you the boss.
Well, okay, like Lorca is obviously an evil captain.
Oh, and Discovery.
And
yeah.
but like he doesn't even pretend to be a good captain, right?
True.
Everybody knows he's evil from the beginning, so why doesn't he get shit?
This is a great, like, Janeway should be in Section 31, I think.
Maybe she will be. That's the thing, like, the one unsatisfying thing about Star Trek is that I really wish that there would be another series that would take place after Voyager, because that's the most future of the time things in Star Trek.
There's ways that it's explored, and they've explored that. There's the game Star Trek Online, which all takes place in the 25th century, like right at the beginning of the 25th century, that explores a lot of those things. And they were going to do an animated series on StarTrek.com, but CBS stopped caring about StarTrek.com. But they were going to do like an animated web series that took place like in the year 3000 or something. And the Federation like doesn't exist anymore because of the whole environmental warp drive problem.
Because everybody stopped paying their taxes.
Yeah, it's 100% tax.
100%
What are you talking
taxes.
about? Yeah.
And the warp drive was polluting the environment.
Yeah,
Shocking.
but anyway, wow, Janeway. Wow, this is I did not expect that conversation. And I am stunned, and I think people are going to be stunned to hear the words coming out of Stephanie's mouth, but I love it. So anyway.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Cool.
Seriously, women always get shit when they make decisions and when they like have a mind and,
Sure.
do shit.
Sure, right on. Ellen, who is your favorite character?
So my favorite character is actually the Doctor.
Nice.
And he's my favorite character because he was so different. Like, he wasn't an android. He started out as a pre-programmed, I don't know, what's the emergency? And eventually he kind of evolved up from that, and he started learning more and gaining more experience. And, like, throughout the show, he becomes this incredibly cultured, witty character. And he gains his independence. At one point, he travels to a planet where he's there for, 3 years or something, and, supposedly as a kid. He really does some amazing things, and so many firsts for a hologram, too.
Sure.
Not only does he have his independence with the holo emitter that comes from, future technology, but also, he just, he is so much better than a lot of the human characters, I think, because he understands the challenges of, being linked to technology in order to exist. Like Stephanie said, sometimes he's mistreated or taken advantage of or treated as property or whatever, but he is always very kind and helpful to people, sometimes to his own detriment.
Yeah, I really loved his relationship with Kess. Even though she would leave, in the third season, I liked how that kind of developed. And then, of course, he would kind of have not a romantic relationship, but a relationship with 7 of 9, where they really were both able to. And this was a really powerful thing, I think, for Voyager 2, is that you had two characters who could look at humans like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
And that was, and they would say that to each other all the time. I don't understand it either. The Doctor would literally say that. And it gave them a character that got to do some very interesting things. Because he wasn't exactly corporeal, you could transmit him to other parts of the galaxy.
Yeah, other parts of the ship, other parts of the galaxy.
Yeah, it is a great character. It's a very unique character. There's not many characters quite like it. There's other science fiction that has holographic characters, but they never were used to the effect that I think the Doctor was. So great pick.
And he was also vulnerable because of his dependence on technology.
Sure.
Which I think added a unique element.
Yeah. And wasn't there an episode where he went into 7 of 9's implants? And I don't mean her. I mean the
cortical implant.
Yeah, the cortical implants. That was hilarious, and he got to taste food or something, I think, for the first time, if I remember.
Oh,
but
yeah,
that was a pretty wild episode.
I sort of vaguely remember something.
Yeah. But great character, bottom line. So.
For sure.
Anyway, should we start getting into our top 3 here for Voyager?
Yeah.
I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention a couple more characters. It's cool that we all had kind of similar picks for our characters, but I think Chakotay deserves an honorable mention, because Robert Beltran was just such a great actor. I just thought he was so good.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. So funny thing, I thought Chakotay was really cool, but a lot of people consider him to be a throwaway character. What are you talking about? He was awesome.
He was the best right-hand man to Janeway.
Yeah, he was a great first officer. Just really supportive. Yeah, without being overbearing and everything. Yeah, I thought he was great. And, Tuvok was also a great character as well.
Yeah, that was nice to have another Vulcan there, too.
Yeah, I like seeing black Vulcans, too.
Yeah, kind of unique.
Was interesting.
Yeah, and so you see other races of Vulcan, or if you want to call it that, other races of Vulcans at certain points in Star Trek, but that was kind of a first, and that was really cool. And now it's become a lot more commonplace. You have them in Discovery and other shows.
It was cool when Tuvok would have something where he actually had to act emotional, because he was really good at transitioning between those two modes.
Tim Russ is a great actor.
Yeah,
he
he's
really
awesome.
is.
Yeah.
I don't know why he hasn't gotten more jobs, but he's a fantastic actor. There was a show, they were trying to make it into a show. I don't know exactly everything that happened to it, called Star Trek Renegades, that had Tuvok in it as a character. Tim Russ reprised his role. Actually, Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov was in it as well. That was very well done. Actually, you and I, Stephanie, years ago did a review of that, of Star Trek Renegades, I think.
Oh,
And
yeah.
do you remember that?
I remember that, yeah. And I was sad that they didn't make more because they got sued by Paramount or something.
Yeah,
right?
that's worth watching because
that was so good. Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
really
it was a fan.
that.
It's an independent production, but it does take place after Voyager, which is nice, which is what you were looking for. So anyway, a little shout out to that. Any other characters anybody wants to bring up that they really appreciated?
I don't know. I always kind of like that Neelix was the comic relief.
Yeah.
Like he was really creative with his recipes and like always trying to cheer people up. Mm-hmm. I really like that about his character.
What can I get for you, Mr. Vulcan?
Exactly.
That was nice.
Like sometimes he was a little overbearing to the Mr. Vulcan, but
yeah.
But yeah, he just wanted to like make sure that everybody was happy.
Yeah.
And well fed.
Harry Kim was really sweet too.
Funny thing, Garrett Wang at the time, like People Magazine, like he was considered the sexiest man alive.
What?
Yeah, back in the 90s, like this was a big deal. Like I said, this is when I was like conscious finally, so I was really paying attention to everything about Voyager, Yeah. And at the time, like he was considered an absolute heartthrob. In the 90s.
No, I mean that's good because like there is this stereotype which comes from like old racist laws and policies that like Asian men aren't sexy or whatever,
right,
aren't masculine or whatever, but I'm glad that there was something that he helped to change that. Yeah,
like People Magazine does like their sexiest man alive, like Brad Pitt won it a lot, or George Clooney, but I think Garrett Wang was one of the winners, or like a newcomer and all that took a top spot. It was quite the thing at the time, because they were going to kill off the character, but he was so like Garrett Wang himself was so popular with people that they kept him on.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that they did, but like honestly, I don't remember his character in the series ever doing anything that was really outstanding.
He was like,
except for the one episode where him and Chakotay were like in the future and they found Voyager ship frozen under ice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That one was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Like you got to see a lot of his regret and anger, but like besides that, I don't know. I just felt like he was like a friend to Lieutenant Paris or Tom Paris, but
well, that was kind of his strength, I think, because that's a character I wanted to mention. I mean, I guess we're practically mentioning every character here, but that's fine. But Tom Paris, like, I mean, he was Star Trek's kind of bad boy. Like they were trying to play him up that way, and that kind of character archetype can get a little annoying.
I was gonna say he just annoyed me. Like I would just roll my eyes and be like, oh, whatever.
Sure, but like Harry was his foil.
Yeah,
like, Harry was the super
right.
nice guy to Tom's bad boy, and of course eventually Tom is no longer the bad boy later down the line with B'Elanna, which was another interesting character, I think. I mean they're all interesting, bottom line. But yeah, certainly some of them stand out significantly more than others in that. So anything else anyone wants to mention about characters?
Well, we might as well talk about B'Elanna. I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting that she was like the first Star Trek character that had kind of like emotional issues. She was like very testy and impatient, and like she expressed her anger,
right?
And I don't remember really any other characters doing that besides maybe Bones from the original series.
Sure.
Worf was Klingon, but he was very like emotionally
rigid,
under control. He really kept it under wraps most of the time. And he really avoided publicly expressing any emotion.
Right. Yeah, but B'Elanna just was not afraid to do that. And that was, I mean, I could appreciate that, that she was so open about her emotions. And also she was like having trouble kind of reconciling with her Klingon side. Like she always felt conflicted about that. Like she didn't want to be Klingon, and then she had to learn to accept it at some point.
She didn't want her baby to be Klingon.
Yeah, I mean, I think Voyager deserves a little credit. This is a show that really, really made really strong female characters, and like characters that would literally kick the ass of men on the
Yeah.
show. Like literally. Seven of Nine would. B'Elanna would have no problem doing that and showing her anger, because anger is usually the emotion for the boys, right? As to where B'Elanna could let it ride, and I always thought that was really great. And Janeway would certainly, kick some butt here and there.
And she was the lead engineer, which is so cool.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, that was great too to have that. And yeah, it was. Again, the more I think about it, there were so many like non-human, or so many characters that could explore the human condition there, more so than I think we realize. It has to be like the most alien crew that Star Trek's ever had, as far as like raw amount of aliens or other life forms, involved. So yeah, great character. Yeah, I always like B'Elanna a lot too. So, do you want to go to our top threes?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm
let's
ready.
break into them. All right. So, Stephanie, we can start off with yours, and these aren't in any like particular order. There's not like a number one, a number two, number three. Really,
Yeah,
at least not for me.
Sure, me too.
Unless Ellen, you want to do that, you're welcome
No,
to.
I mean, I wouldn't even say that these are my top 3 picks. They're just the ones that like stand out the most to me.
Sure, no, that's totally valid.
It's really hard to pick, top 3.
Yeah, I mean,
these are just memorable for me too.
7 years of a show. I mean, how do you choose 3? Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. So, speaking of B'Elanna, I think this is a great one to go right into.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, and that is the season 2 episode Faces. Or
Yes.
wait, no, season 1 episode 14, I think, but Faces. And sorry, I do that.
So in this episode, B'Elanna gets captured by the Vidian Sodality.
Yeah, the Vidians.
The Vidians, who are this race of like vampire aliens, basically, that are affected by this ravaging virus called the phage.
Right.
And there's no known cure for it. They just have to keep constantly replacing their organs with
grafting skin
new
on.
organs.
Yeah.
So they're grafting skin. There's one point where they steal Neelix's lung or something, or his lungs.
Yeah.
So they're constantly trying to like vampirize organs, which is kind of scary, but they're a great villain, underutilized.
Very interesting villain.
Yeah.
And underutilized on the show. You're right.
But they find that Klingon organs are resistant to the phage. And so if they can replace their organs with Klingon ones, then they will have some immunity from it or something like that.
Right.
So they find B'Elanna somehow, but they realize that she's not completely Klingon. She's only half Klingon and half human. So what they do is they somehow separate her into 2 people. They isolate the Klingon DNA and the human DNA, and they somehow extract that into 2 distinct people. And so then there's the Klingon B'Elanna and there's the human B'Elanna. And I just thought that was really interesting because it brings up all of her issues about being sort of a halfling,
Right.
And that was the thing that I thought that was the most important thing about that episode in particular, because there's so many human things that we can relate to on that. Like, for example, if you're biracial, or if your parents come from 2 different backgrounds, you may feel like as a child of that, you never fit in completely with either one of those worlds.
Sure. They have very different cultures. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Like from 2 different cultures or whatever. Even like being bisexual, right? You might feel like you don't quite fit in with the straights, but you also don't quite fit in with the gays, and you
Sure.
might feel forced to pick a side at different times. People might not accept you because they feel that you're not really one of them. You're not completely one of them. And oftentimes, people who are from 2 different worlds like that do end up sort of picking a side. Sometimes they get really into like one of the cultures or something like that. Sometimes they go overboard embracing one of the cultures.
Yeah.
And B'Elanna sort of did that, or her character sort of did that, where she was sort of rejecting her Klingonness and wishing that she could have been fully human because she got bullied a lot because of being half Klingon when she was growing up.
But without realizing everything that the Klingon part of her was bringing to the table.
Exactly. And then when she got separated, she did realize what the Klingon half of her brought to the table, and she was able to accept herself a little bit more. Yeah.
Very interesting episode. Very reminiscent of the original series episode, The Enemy Within, where Kirk gets split into 2, an evil side and a good side. And I always thought that was an interesting character play to do, at least. But then also, I mean, the genuine psychological things to wonder about and how much you can, really read into that, I think is beautiful. So yeah, great episode there with Faces. Ellen, did you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I wanted to know more specifically, like, what important things did she get from her Klingon side?
Well, strength was one. Like I remember,
Courage.
Yeah, courage and strength was like the big things. I think. I remember like her human side was like, she was trying to escape, or she was trying to like resist, like she was in captivity basically by the Vidians, and she was like, oh my god, I can't move this thing, I can't, like, why am I so weak? And then she started to cry, and she's like, why am I crying? Like she couldn't function because she was just like, she didn't have, the cow was like the cowardly lion, like, I have no heart.
Yeah.
But the Klingon side actually found the brute strength to like literally break out of the restraints and get revenge on the people
And
who
make the hard choices.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
like there's a point, I think, where the Vidian is going to like threatens to kill the human B'Elanna.
Right.
And she's
she saves her.
terrified. She's terrified.
Mm-hmm.
But the Klingon version is not, or the Klingon part of her is not. And so, yeah. I mean, it's again, an interesting look at, what sometimes we think of as negative traits. Maybe they bring more to us, to who we are, than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a great episode.
Yeah, great pick. Do you want to move on from that one?
Sure.
All right, let's go to Ellen's first of her top 3.
Okay. Well, I guess this would be number 3 of 3 if we're gonna go in that order. This one is called Distant Origins. It was the one that we watched recently, where the Voth, I think that's what they're called.
Yes, the Voth.
They have a really ancient and proud civilization.
And advanced, very advanced.
Yeah. And somehow they come across Voyager. They realize they have similar DNA, and they want to figure out, like, there's one specific scientist who's trying to figure out where their homeworld is. And he finds out that, they share a few genes, and so they go onto Voyager and observe the humans, and eventually they're detected, and they take... Which is the character that they take with them to
Chakotay
their
is who
ship?
they take. So I mean, these things look like dinosaurs.
They
right?
do.
I mean, they're like lizard, saurians or something you'd want to
Lizard
call them.
people.
Lizard people, like just like David Icke's
Right,
things are on the moon.
which shocks you, right? And it's interesting because and this easily could have been one of my picks, because they're starting off with this premise, like this guy has this theory. I don't think we're originally from the Delta Quadrant. I think we're from somewhere else, and it falls in line kind of like with people's like ancient aliens ideas, ancient astronaut theorists and all this.
Right.
But it's kind of like, it's these dinosaurs. And so, sorry, continue.
So anyway, so Chakotay's there with them on their ship, and he's telling them about Earth, and then they go back to Voyager and kind of like run a simulation backwards on the DNA and find out, they're evolved from dinosaurs. Like,
right.
These dinosaurs somehow like built a spaceship and got away from Earth because there were some bad things happening there, and they made it all the way to the Delta Quadrant. So they try to present this evidence to I don't know if she's like the queen or
the person or the dinosaur
prime minister, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
The one who comes up with the theory is like a professor or like an academic.
Yeah,
and he's
a scientist
trying to convince like some academy or like some bureaucratic kind of high council that his theory is true, but it's a heretical idea.
Yeah, absolutely, because this society is so like ancient, advanced, and proud that they it's just it's built into their beliefs that they belong here. This is their homeworld, and any other theory that disproves that is taking away from their pride as a civilization. So they tell the Doctor to refute this claim and take it back, and they even get his assistant to do that, which is really sad.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of horrible to watch that. But yeah, either it comes down to Voyager being destroyed or him taking it back, right? So I think in the end he decided to just not go on with his theory, right?
Yeah, that's what he decides. I mean, it's very much a Galileo or Copernicus versus the Catholic Church situation
Right.
Totally.
that he ends up in, and it's a well done version of that, and an interesting. Well, I mean, you tell me what you thought about it, Ellen. Like, I thought what was so cool about that was like, oh, the dinosaurs lived on. Like, oh, the dinosaurs got advanced. I mean, like, it was such a wild idea to play with, you know? I mean, what did you think?
Well, there are numerous things about this episode that I really liked. First of all, the dinosaurs being, like, highly advanced and sophisticated, that was really cool because, like, reptiles... We look at them now and they seem like unemotional and kind of creepy, but like they do seem like they could be really smart. You know, they're kind of, well, especially dinosaurs. You know, you kind of wonder what happened to them, their theories, but not all of them answer all of the questions that you might have about what happened to the dinosaurs. So, I think it was interesting that Voyager explored that and kind of like postulated this possible scenario and played it out into the future. Like, millions of years have passed. What do these dinosaurs look like now? And what sort of society would they create? And apparently it's like a dogmatic one. But again, that's like relatable to our society. Like you just said, there have been times in the past where scientists have come out to claim certain things that go against the religious claims, or like even the belief that, everything revolves around the earth and not the sun. Like, that made us as humans feel important. Like, we were the center of the universe, but we're not.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one thing that science has taught us, is that, like, we do need to be humble and, like, accept the facts and not think that we're, the center of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this episode does a great job of that. In fact, like, I mean, just to see what a civilization that's been around for millions of years, like when they're studying the Voyager, or not when they're studying it, when they are threatening to destroy the Voyager, the Voth, like they beam it into one of their ships, and like literally they're beaming the Voyager into one of their ships. I mean, it's that huge, right? It's so advanced. Anything else that stuck out particularly with that episode?
Yeah, I just thought it was really sweet, too, that the scientist decided to, he could have done the really, like, proud, stubborn thing and said, no, I'm still going to publish my findings and put the ideas out there into society and hopefully change society for the better, which, I mean, like, I get it. If he had made that decision, I guess I could kind of understand, like, yeah, you want society to move forward with ideology and not be so stuck on dogma. But at the same time, like, he would have been sentencing the entire Voyager crew to death.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very sweet that he was willing to, withhold that information in order to set them free.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephanie, did you have any quick thoughts on this episode?
I think the scientists knew that eventually the truth would come out by someone else.
Sure.
And it would be in a situation where it wasn't, essentially executing an entire ship full of people.
Which has happened in the real world on Earth many times.
Yeah.
And so, I think that, I really, really loved the scientific play on that. I mean, and it was just such a fun twist on everything that you just didn't, I mean, you kind of thought it was happening. Like, you could kind of guess what was going on. But, just a lot of fun for an episode, no doubt about it. So, that could have easily sat in my top pick. And a lot of the writers for Voyager also said, like, that was one of their favorite ones that they got to do, and they wish they could have done more with it. But, anyway, shall we move on?
Yeah.
All right.
Yours.
So here we go.
What's
this
your
is,
pick?
Yeah, I guess my number 3, if we were doing that. And this is really simple. It's Flashback, which is an episode from season 3, which it has where Tuvok kind of he has to relive an experience of you find out that because he's over 100 years old or whatever, you find out he served aboard the USS Excelsior under Captain Hikaru Sulu, of course, Captain Sulu of the original series. And so George Takei is back in this. Grace Lee Whitney is back in this. I mean, you get all these great characters from the original series that are there. Janeway has to go through this process with Tuvok as well. And that's really it. It's a favorite episode because, God damn it, I want more Captain Sulu. Like I love seeing my original series characters, showing up, like in the episode of Next Generation, Relics with Scotty. But Sulu was, I mean, people, just real quick, people got to understand, like at the time, George Takei was really pushing to get a Captain Sulu show. Like, there was a chance that the next Star Trek could have been all about the USS Excelsior. I would have been so fucking on board with that. And I mean, please, like, I'd take that in a heartbeat. So but that's really it. There's not much to say about the episode. It was just so great to have Sulu back, and to really see him in action, and to see the Excelsior was nice. All of that was really cool because it's such a rich part of Star Trek history.
That was a nostalgia move.
Yeah, totally, but it worked. And Voyager needed the ratings, and it really, really worked. I mean, it was one of the very first few episodes of season 3. So that's all I've got on that one. I don't know if you have any comments on it, or we can move on to Stephanie's next.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
So
actually,
I don't know
your
the
next
name
one,
of it.
I'll give you the name.
Okay.
So the next one. How about the whole Chakotay thing? Right.
Yeah.
Let's hit on that.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
So Chakotay and Janeway, this is one of their shining episodes, I think, and definitely it would be one of my top picks easily. And it's called Resolutions, and this is from season 2. And effectively Chakotay and Janeway are infected with this disease of some kind. They have to get left on this planet because otherwise they'll infect Voyager, and Tuvok takes Voyager to go find the cure. But it takes a long, long time. A few months.
Yeah.
And so Janeway and Chakotay, they get left with some supplies by Voyager, a little makeshift, prefab home and stuff like this.
They're essentially marooned on this planet, and they're surviving on the planet. They're doing the survivalist thing.
And collecting bugs.
Yeah.
And they don't know if they're ever going to actually be able to rejoin
to leave the planet in any way. Yeah. And so what did you love about this episode? Because, well, I'll say it quick. Things get romantic.
Totally. They eventually start thinking, well, shit, we might as well just live out our lives here and start having kids because, we could totally populate this planet with humans.
That's one thing that I totally wanted to see in the Voyager series was like Chakotay and Janeway having a romantic moment.
Yeah,
they do. They do in
it.
this episode. Yeah, and I thought the acting was great in that. But they were able to once they found out that they actually could go back to the ship, they were able to just sort of snap out of it really quickly. And I thought that was great because it really cemented their relationship as captain and first officer. That it was unbreakable.
Sure. Definitely, I think a defining moment, actually, in a lot of ways for both characters, because it got to explore more of the romantic. Not that you didn't get the romantic side in the first episode of Janeway, because she talks to her fiance in it, that she pretty much has to leave behind, obviously, because she's in the Delta Quadrant. But yeah, you got to see that side. You got to see the romantic side of Janeway, which was really, really nice. You get it a couple other times, sort of, but this was particularly special, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing about that episode was I thought it was cool that they're, here they are on this advanced starship in the 25th century or 24th century. And they have all this technology. They can replicate anything they want. They have holodecks. They have transporters. They have everything. They have advanced shuttles and ships. But they actually had to do some primitive survival stuff to survive on this planet. They had to build a house out of wood.
How nice to have a Native American there to handle that business, I mean, really, I don't know.
I guess he was kind of in touch with his roots a little bit, but Janeway helped too. Obviously, they were both contributing, and there was one point where I remember them almost lying on a fire lying on a bearskin rug next to a fire kind of thing. Yeah.
Ellen, any thoughts on this episode?
So didn't Chakotay build Janeway a bathtub too?
Yes.
Yeah, she really wanted a bathtub. Yeah, that was nice.
That was really nice.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I thought the episode was sexy as hell. I'll just say it.
I think it was sexy too.
I mean, I love this sort of these kinds of stories. I love that kind of shit. Either 2 or however many against the world, or in a survival situation. I love that. I thought, I'm just saying it. I thought it was hot.
That story alone is such good fodder for fan fiction.
Hell yes. Yeah. And that's another popular thing. Chakotay Janeway fanfic. I mean, you start typing it into Google, fanfic's going to be a word that comes up pretty quick might be the first thing that'll come that Google will autofill after you type in Chakotay and Janeway.
Yeah, and there's some good ones out there.
Really?
Yeah.
See, so now I've recently learned this about you, Ellen. You've read fan fiction for all kinds of things. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, Chakotay and Janeway have plenty of stories out there already that aren't part of the canon.
I love it.
Nice.
And they can go far beyond what the television series did because it's just a story.
Yeah, I think we were talking about because of course you're the editor for the Sovereign Tech newsletter now, and
Yeah.
you were going over some short fiction, and you said, well, there's some Star Trek fiction that doesn't. I'm like, wait a minute, how the hell do you know? And I was like, oh, well, she reads fan fiction, which is perfect. That's great. That's why
Yeah.
you're so great for the job. Or one of the reasons. But I mean, yeah, that's awesome. So I can imagine that there's really great stuff out there. I think this episode could stand pretty tall. And it's total character play. Like it's all about the characters. It's not about anything else going on, and it's beautiful. So great pick. I don't know if I would have thought of it I mean,
That's why you have multiple people in on this, because we all remember different episodes.
yeah.
There's so many good episodes. There's hundreds of episodes or something or 200 or
over 100. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we want to go on to the next?
Yeah.
Ellen, here we go. You're number 2.
Yeah, okay. So I guess my second favorite would be Living Witness, and that is an episode where the holographic doctor wakes up in a museum, and he's being told by the museum purveyor that like he's part of this. He was found in the wreckage of Voyager, and they're trying to put together what life was like on Voyager, and they're painting all of these characters as like terrible villains, and supposedly Voyager like assimilated a bunch of different species. Like that's the only way that so many species could be on one ship, is if they were all prisoners there.
Yeah.
So like they show the doctor one of the scenes that they recreated of the ship, and Captain Janeway like has on black gloves and short hair.
See,
and
I love the uniforms in this. Like, because she has like this weird. I mean, she looks very fascist, frankly. I mean, for lack of a better term, this is evil Janeway.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't know. I love the black gloves with the Starfleet uniform, and I think they had like some kind of more militaristic like stylings to it. And I don't know. I thought those were cool, and it looked very Mirror Universe in a way. But
Yeah,
anyway.
and you want to talk about breaking a few eggs. Like in this episode, Janeway has to break up a fist fight with her phaser.
Yeah.
And she like kills an ambassador or something, and she's like, "This isn't time for regrets."
Wow.
It's like doing the Mirror Universe without
Yeah.
having to do the Mirror Universe. And that is a cool episode. I
It
have
was
to
so
agree.
much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the doctor ends up basically trying to write the history behind Voyager, and there's kind of like some racial tensions between these two races that have been living together on the same planet for a while, and I guess the disagreement between them about the history, because like the doctor's account of the history paints one of the races as like more aggressive and the other is like martyrs essentially, and they don't, the two races don't like this. They start like bickering, and tensions escalate, and the doctor like he almost gives up after. So there's this crisis, I guess, where the whole museum is like raided and things are destroyed, and he's thinking that he should just deactivate himself because he's the reason that all this tumult is happening. But the museum purveyor that he's been working with convinces him to just continue looking for this tricorder, and he does. And then like the episode jumps to a few years in the future, like, and that was the scene that started the whole peacemaking between the two races. Was the doctor not giving up. And like the best part about this episode was that the doctor, like, he becomes the head surgeon or something of like this galactic like I don't know, he's like a big surgeon, and then eventually he decides that he wants to go follow the Voyager starship back to the Alpha Quadrant because he had a longing for home.
Yeah.
And that was so cute. But yeah, I really loved in this episode that, like, again, the doctor was just, well, first of all, he wasn't afraid to like speak the truth about the accounting of history. Like, he wanted to make sure that these people weren't living by revisionist history, which is a big thing, I think, like, especially for, Americans. We grow up in a society
very
where
revisionist history.
Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure. Like, Americans are always painted as the good guys in history, and like that's certainly not the truth.
Right.
And so I think that was like a really good way to get people to reflect on that, you know, history is not always as we see it. And, you know, like, just because so many people agree on one account of something does not mean that it's true at all.
Yeah, I mean, history is not an exact science. It's tough to even, I mean, I wouldn't even call it a science. Like, really, the only thing you can count on is what you were there for, you know? And so, yeah, that was really a great episode for bringing that to light. And it's another one of those ones that I think if you don't realize it, but if you think about it, like, it's another one of those subversive episodes of Star Trek, which Star Trek just does all the time and does so well, where, you know, they're laying out ideas on you and you didn't even notice. You know, but then it comes to mind later, you know, and maybe at the right moment you think about the Doctor, who knows. But yeah, great episode, great pick. Stephanie, any thoughts on it, or we can move on? I'll move on.
I don't really remember that episode. I vaguely remember it, but I'd like to watch it again.
Yeah. I thought it was great that, like, the Doctor was willing to, like, deactivate himself to save these people.
Yeah.
So he can basically live forever.
Yeah. As long as he has that emitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just data. You know, data doesn't really degrade. Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as your
Doesn't
storage
get old.
gets transferred and everything. Yeah, you're good. So, yeah, interesting. Yeah, a great episode.
Becomes Rocco's basilisk.
Whoa, we're not going to go there. We don't talk about that. So, anyway, all right, I'll go on to my number 2 here. And this one is, well, I guess I'll go with this because this gets into the sexy. Actually, a couple of my picks here really are. But I thought, so the episode Blood Fever, okay? And this is an episode where there's another Vulcan on board that he's going through Ponfar. And he decides to choose B'Elanna as his mate for this.
Non-consensual.
Yeah, he just lets her know.
Yeah. And B'Elanna, who we've talked about her, you know, her, I don't want to say bad attitude, her attitude. I like her attitude. Her attitude in this show, that does not go over well. Like, sorry, buddy. And she actually, like, breaks his nose or something. I mean,
maybe instead of bad attitude, we should say bad assitude.
Yeah, bad assitude. There it is. Yeah, because I don't think it's a bad attitude at all.
Yeah. I think it's a good attitude to reject this creeper.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so, but for varying reasons, she ends up getting kind of like where she is experiencing Ponfar herself because of this and because of the contact that she had with this other Vulcan guy. And it creates, well, there's a few things that, I mean, there's a scene where the Doctor's trying to help out this poor Vulcan who is, you know, and he creates he creates a Vulcan woman on the holodeck, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's like she can do all these things, you know. I think this is really going to help you get over this." You know, the Doctor's just being so, you know, trying to be so helpful, and he's so proud of himself. You know, it's like, "Oh, this is great." It's like I think he even makes like a comment that he'd love to watch it, but you know, he won't. Anyway,
he's trying to make it like scientific and medical.
Right, he wants to explore it, you know. And
well, he's trying to be open about the sex education,
yes.
but the Vulcans don't want to be open about sex education.
They're so repressed.
They restrict the data from anybody else. They say it's a private matter. They don't give even other Vulcans really much information about what's happening to their own body.
Yeah, and he wants to kind of, you know, crack open that egg.
Yeah.
And make the omelet, I guess, huh? So
yeah, the Vulcans are like weirdly Victorian in that aspect.
In that way, yeah. So,
yeah, but I mean, I think it really shows well, like, what happens when you restrict sexual education and information.
Sure.
Is like it just gets worse for everybody. It goes underground. People don't understand what's happening to their bodies.
Turns
it's
into
almost like
Ponfar.
it's like puberty, you know?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you're trying to mind meld with some girl who really doesn't want it.
Yeah, right. So, well, anyway, so B'Elanna, you know, she doesn't want to actually stoop the Vulcan, but Tom Paris, on the other hand,
she gets the hots for Tom Paris.
Yeah, and there's like multiple moments, and then finally there's a moment on the planet where she just like pushes him down to the ground and says, "I know you want this. I want this right now." And I'll just say it, like, younger me was like, hell yeah, like this is great. You know,
before that she ends up fighting and beating up the original Vulcan that pursued her.
Oh yeah,
because there's this thing where you can challenge, like you can do a challenge for the mate or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's usually like two males are fighting over a female,
right,
that they both want. But B'Elanna says, she wants to fight the Vulcan, and if she wins, then she doesn't have to be his mate.
Right.
Yeah,
and
she's
of course
her own
she
champion.
wins. Yeah.
Yeah. So that part was awesome too. It was just a fun. It was a fun episode. Very well done. I thought of exploring Ponfar, which hadn't been done in a while on Star Trek.
Yeah.
And again, there's parts of it that I just think were just hot. Just really, really hot. And Star Trek, I think Star Trek in itself is inherently kind of sexy, but when it can be openly very sexy, I like that. And so that did it for me with Star Trek Voyager. In that. So anyway, okay, let's go on to this is our last round, and then we are going to wrap this baby up. So Stephanie, your last, or your number one pick, I guess I should say, is, we mentioned it earlier that this would probably be a part of the list, and understandably so. I actually think it's well done. Endgame, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is the series finale. Where
should we talk about that last, or?
No, well, I think we can get into it now. So basically, what you have is it's in the future. You find out that Voyager made it home. Not without some loss.
Yeah.
And
there's like a timeline where the Voyager made it back, but only after like 70 years or something. Well, and there's like a Janeway, there's like a future Janeway.
Yeah, you end up with an Admiral Janeway.
Yeah.
Who, she wants to change things to where, a lot of different things can happen. Like, this is a big episode. There's a lot of subplots to cover that we don't have to cover them all here. But one of them is she wants to put an end to the Borg, which become a major threat. Yeah, and this is another thing that we didn't get into about, like, what did Voyager mean to us? We talked about 7 and 9 and all that. But Voyager is where, like, if you love the Borg, or if you thought the Borg were a great villain and all that, boy, Voyager is your fucking show. Because they are all over the place.
Oh, yeah. The Borg are the best villains.
Yeah, they're so good.
Yeah, because they are, in many ways, the antithesis of what I think humans instinctively know they are, which is individuals. And they are the exact opposite of that. So she has, her battle with the Borg Queen in this, but she ends up going back in time, and like we were talking about earlier, she wipes out this entire timeline that existed before.
Yeah, she does.
But the action and everything that's going on, I think is, it's your pick, so you need to be talking about it. But I think it's very well done. But go ahead. What was great about this episode for you?
There's something about, like, breaking the transwarp barrier. That was kind of cool.
Yeah,
very
high tech.
They're
episode.
able to do that. Yeah,
Sure.
and they actually explained it, like, decently well. It wasn't just magical, like, oh, we're riding on the mycelia.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and she actually also manages to wipe out the Borg, and I also like that too. That aspect of, like, do you ever wish you could, like, present you, could go back in time and, like, reach out to your younger self and, like, tell your younger self, like, no, don't do that, or do this,
Yes.
Like, I think there was a little bit of that in there that felt good to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we all go through that. You don't want to live life with regrets, but are there things that, boy, you would change? Like, the old question of, if I could tell my younger self 2 words, what would it be? Everybody thinks about that question. I've had my answer forever. Don't marry. But but anyway, but yes, that's a great point. What else did you have about this episode?
I just thought it was a good ending to the series.
Sure.
A really good conclusion.
Sure, absolutely. Ellen, you have thoughts on Endgame?
I think it was so cool to, like, see the Borg up close. I always love episodes where the Borg are a large part of the storyline, and they're not just like a spaceship that gets exploded. Like, you actually, like, get to go in and interact with the Borg in the episode. And yeah, I really like that about Endgame.
Yeah.
Doesn't Janeway find out that her former fiance has, like, married someone else or something?
Oh, there's a point where she finds out a lot of that
or he's
stuff.
Dead or something. Yeah.
Well, that he moved on.
Yeah.
Because in fact, these are in our honorable mentions, which I guess a couple of these we could bring up quickly right here. Lifeline and Pathfinder are 2 particular ones, but you end up with what is actually the Pathfinder program, where
They somehow establish contact with Starfleet in the Alpha Quadrant.
Right.
And they let them know that they're still out there, but they're very far away.
Yeah, and actually Reginald Barclay, our old character Reginald Barclay, ends up becoming somewhat of a regular on Voyager. And he is interacting. He's part of this Pathfinder program, and he ends up interacting in the sense that like he's trying to help bring them home.
Is Pathfinder the communication program that allows them to send messages, or is it the program
it's just
to
like
get them
the
home?
overall like project, I think. But we end up getting Marina Sirtis comes back in those episodes.
Oh, yes, she does.
Deanna Troi looking fantastic and doing fantastic. What a great character. And yeah, that was so eventually the Voyager does make contact with the Alpha Quadrant even while they're still in the Delta Quadrant. Which becomes an interesting subplot as well throughout like the last, I guess maybe that'd be the last couple seasons when that happened.
The last couple seasons.
Yeah. So, I mean, I already gave my thoughts on Endgame. But yeah, that the whole subplot with Barclay and Troy and the Doctor, because the Doctor can be transmitted to the Alpha Quadrant, that ended up, injecting some really interesting ideas into the show.
Totally.
And allowed for some... Well, it made Starfleet relevant in the Delta Quadrant again because...
And it brings it all together, yeah.
Yeah. Though I will say, and actually I kind of, just real quick, I want to get your thoughts on this. Like, this, because this happened with Enterprise, the show Enterprise as well. In the last season, in the last episode of Enterprise, it ended up being Riker and Troy. Like, pretty much it seems like Paramount, or CBS, I guess. CBS felt like, okay, if our ratings are hurting, let's get some Next Generation characters in. Do you think that cheapens it at all?
No, I think it's wonderful. It really brings the whole Star Trek universe together.
Yeah, okay.
And I hope that if they make a show that's future with respect to Voyager, that they do bring back some Voyager characters.
Sure. Ellen, I mean, do you think that like bringing in next gen characters, do you feel like that steals away from the thunder of the original characters for the show?
No, because like their lives still go on,
right?
And I kind of want to see what they're up to, in the future.
Sure,
because they don't just stay stagnant; they are living, changing creatures.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, I can agree with that. I mean, I think that the season or the series finale for Enterprise, I thought that kind of was bullshit, but it's how they did it in Voyager. I think it worked great. I thought it was beautiful.
There was one thing that frustrated me about the ending of Voyager, which is like it was so sudden. There wasn't any debriefing at the end. Like you get to see them settling back into their lives. Like they've been gone for years.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know what happened.
I guess that's part of it. Like, how would there's no life to settle back into.
I guess so, but, like, you still kind of have to get used to not living on a starship and being able to interact with, people from your past.
The books by Kirsten Beyer, who actually writes for Star Trek Discovery, the show, which I couldn't be happier about. She did, like, a sequel series of books for Voyager that were pretty cool because like Chakotay and 7 of 9 actually get married, if I remember correctly, in that. Janeway does become Admiral, which that happens because Janeway appears in, and Turnabout's fair play, Janeway appears in Star Trek Nemesis in the Next Generation movie. She's, the Admiral giving Captain Picard, his walking orders or his marching orders or whatever. And which I thought was great. Like, again, like you two said, like this brings it all together. It brings the universe together.
Yeah. And I like seeing that interconnectedness.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, let's go to your top pick, Ellen. And
okay.
Yeah, and then I'll finish off with mine and we'll wrap this up.
So my top pick was an episode called Drone, where 7 of 9 and the Doctor get into the transporter and something happens where like the Doctor's hollow emitter and 7 of 9's nanobots interact and I guess to make a long story short, the nanobots actually the nanobots in the transporter or the hollow emitter create a Borg baby, which is interesting because the Borg don't procreate, they just assimilate.
Yeah.
And so like it is not very long before the Borg baby fetus thing becomes a fully functional Borg. And
it's wildly advanced.
Oh yeah, it's super advanced technology because the Doctor's hollow emitter is from the future.
Right.
So it's got like all these cool capabilities that normal Borgs don't have, and it's also interesting because this new Borg is also like it's a child. It doesn't know anything. Like, it's got its basic programming, but like when it first wakes up, it's just waiting for its designation and for orders. And like, it's constantly asking about the Borg, who are like its parents. Like, I want to know what my parents are like. But everybody on the crew is like kind of nervous. They don't want to tell him because they're like, well, they're like murderers and they assimilate people.
Yeah.
But so I thought it was like kind of touching in that sense that like even though this thing is like super advanced technology, it still has that childlike sense of wonder, like curiosity about who and what it is. And also, in this episode, like 7 of 9 is taking care of it because she used to be Borg, so she kind of can relate to this thing better than anyone else, and she has to like teach it the importance of being an individual, and I guess that helps her to reflect on that too. Because
she takes on kind of a motherly role, really.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. Sure.
Yeah. But she kind of, like, in that episode, she recognizes, like, yeah, she's an individual, and she doesn't necessarily, like, fit in with the crew, but they are her new collective.
Right.
So she's, like, realizing that, like, even though she doesn't, like, totally understand humans and agree with everything that they do, she still likes being an individual more than being a drone. And in the end, the new Borg baby, the futuristic hollow emitter Borg
drone
thing, whatever. Oh, his name ends up becoming 1. He chooses his designation as 1.
Yeah.
So he actually goes onto a Borg ship because, like, there's some transmitter on him that signals a Borg ship, and they show up, and he goes onto there and says, like, I'm futuristic, and I can destroy the ship if you don't leave Voyager alone. So, of course, the Borg are like, we want to assimilate you.
Yeah.
And so he destroys the Borg ship, and he survives, and they bring him back onto Voyager. But he puts up this special force field around himself so that the doctor can't operate on him. He's like, I should just die because if I don't, then the Borg are going to come back looking for me because they know I exist now. So it's kind of a sad scene. But again, kind of just like gave his life to save Voyager, which I guess a lot of my episodes have that in common. But I just thought it was so cool that like 7 of 9 got to... kind of like relive her experience of like transitioning from Borg drone to individual through teaching another Borg about being an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, all of that spot on what you said. Another episode though, where Voyager got to be like, I mean, it's sad in the end, but like where it got to be cool. Like, okay, so we've seen futuristic Starfleet ships in Voyager. We've seen all these other things. What does a futuristic Borg look like? Like what happens when you have an advanced Borg? And it's wild the shit that one can do. Or the drone one that he can do. I loved it when Voyager would just go full out with like just advanced tech. Like even when they'd work with the Borg and they made like the armored Voyager, I thought that was awesome. In the episode, was that in Scorpion? Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. So yeah, awesome pick. Stephanie, any thoughts on this one or?
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Hugh from the Next Generation.
Yeah, the episode I, Borg.
Yeah, where Picard finds this kid that is basically a Borg, but is also showing some signs of humanity and sort of takes him under his wing. And eventually Hugh, what happens to Hugh? Hugh goes back to the Borg, right?
Yeah, and he infects the collective with individuality.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And they don't know what to do and they short circuit.
Right, but then they all end up getting under the command of Data's brother, Lore.
Yes.
Until they overthrow Lore.
Yeah.
Hugh ends up leading like a rebellion to overthrow Lore. Boy, the Borg, such a fun, terrifying at the same time species to toy with storyline wise.
We should somehow like make a collection of all the episodes that are about the Borg and all the movies and just watch all of them.
I'm down.
I would love to do that.
Yeah,
just
let's do
the
it.
Borg collection.
All right, I'm
the
down.
Borg
We're doing
collective.
Hell yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So since we're talking about Borg episodes, I mean, like, I guess one of my honorable mentions would be that episode where the Borg finds the species that's more advanced than them, and they do have to team up with Voyager to, like,
species 357 or something.
Something like that, yeah. The interdimensional species.
Yeah.
Well, right. They live in liquid space.
Yeah.
It's species A472, and they live like literally in an alternate universe. And that was amazing because, like, wait a minute, there's something more powerful than the Borg. Again, this is where Voyager they're like, well, we'll come up with something more advanced.
Take it to the next level.
Exactly. The show just kept doing that, and it was so cool.
That was so cool because you didn't think that there was anything scarier than the Borg, but then there was.
Yeah, in the episode, I remember you suddenly see. Well, I guess that was Scorpion. I think when you first meet species 8472, and that's when 7 of 9 comes on. And when you see like just the graveyard of Borg cubes, because of this race coming in. Oh man, yeah, nuts. I mean that was awesome pick.
Yeah, and like really kind of scary too. Like that's such a dangerous like knife edge walking that you have to do when you're teaming up with the Borg. Like how do you know they're not going to turn against you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Scorpion was actually set as one of my honorable mentions, just for 7 of 9 coming on. But your angle's maybe even better. Like with species A472, just like takes it to the next level.
Why do they call it Scorpion? Is that because it's like the man, like the proverb where like. I vaguely remember, maybe this is like not true, but I vaguely remember Chakotay like talking to Janeway about why this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then he's like, a man said to a scorpion, don't sting me. And the scorpion said, okay. And then he stung him and he died. And like a fox is swimming across the river with a scorpion on its back.
A frog.
A frog?
A frog. The Borg. Yeah, now that's going to become a thing.
The Borg frog.
The Borg frog. The Forg. This is what happens when you do late night podcasting.
Your biological uniqueness will be added to our own.
But yeah, I think it's the frog and the scorpion. And the frog's going to take it across, and the scorpion's like, well, stings the frog once it crosses, and the frog's like, why did you do that? You said you wouldn't do that. And the scorpion just says, it's my nature. It's what I do.
Because I'm a scorpion.
So the concern is that the Borg is going to assimilate Voyager even after they help them with species 8472. Yeah, exactly. Great episode. Really great episode. Could have easily topped anybody's top 3. So anything else on that?
No, let's go do the Borg Collective.
Yeah. Okay, well, I gotta give my last pick.
Oh yes, that's right.
And then last pick? Yeah, and then we'll wrap it up. But it's fitting because it's another Borg episode.
Cool.
This one being a 2-parter, Unimatrix 0, which is pretty much what did this for me. Is you find out that there are certain Borg who, 7 of 9 is one of these, who when they have to recharge, like they don't exactly sleep, but when they do their version of sleeping, which is their recharging, some of them still have like their individuality. Is in like a back part of their brain.
They almost have like a dream state or like a virtual reality that they can enter.
Right, and so they call it now. Like the Borg cities or collections of Borg cubes and everything are called Unimatrixes, and like Unimatrix 1 is where the Borg Queen is, and you find out this is Unimatrix 0, and it's this like literally like a matrix, like the Matrix is in the movies, the Matrix, where it's this area where these people can explore, and honestly, there's Borg. I don't think you say Borgs. There's Borg falling in love. Like 7 of 9 has a boyfriend there, or has a love interest there and everything, and it's like this really, really paradisical place. Like it's in it almost looks like the Greek version, like the Elysian Fields or something like that. It's really beautiful, and I loved that like, oh no, the individuality is still kind of there, and they have like this hidden away virtual world where they can all go and experience it. Kind of almost feels like a Shadowrun. I mean, like there's a lot of things that it really reminds me of. But I love those episodes, and I love them so much. I directly swipe the term Unimatrix 0, and I use it in my Sovereign Universe fiction because why the fuck not? So yeah, I really, really enjoyable stuff. But yeah, that probably sits at my number 1 because I thought it was such a cool idea and such a new angle for the Borg when you didn't think there couldn't be a new angle.
Yeah, like they still retain their individuality even after they've been assimilated. That is really impressive.
Yeah, and like the Borg Queen kind of knows about it, and they're always trying to quash the Unimatrix 0.
Right, yeah, the Borg are threatened by it.
Yeah.
Because how could they hide it from the Queen,
Right. It's
I
just
think they go through some steps to try to hide it, but they can't hide it because they're all connected.
Yeah. It's a really, really fascinating exploration of another angle to the Borg that I thought was really cool. That gave them dimension, more so than just being the scary with the big cube and assimilating everybody. So, okay. Any thoughts anyone wanted to?
Yeah, I just think that it's kind of cool that they did take on that angle because it shows, like, even though the Borg are like a scary collective and they're the biggest supervillain in the Star Trek series, like none of the Borg started out as willing. They all just wanted to be individuals, and then they entered against their will. And it's awesome that you can just see that side of them, like what they were before they became the Borg.
Yeah,
so I'm really glad they included at least a little bit of that in the series.
The Queen, if she was smart, she would have let Unimatrix Zero continue, because that's how you keep people enslaved, is you let them think they're free.
Yeah.
Right. Give the proles some of their dope.
Yeah, exactly. Bread and circuses.
Stephanie, you're so devious on the show. What the hell? I mean,
Taking
I love it.
inspiration from my favorite character, Janeway.
Woo, right on, yeah.
Oh my! I don't think Janeway ever gave out dope to her proles.
Yeah, that's what all the what is it, it's terrible. The replicator rations were, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, well, anyway, great picks, I think, all the way around. Great exploration of the show. If people have never watched Voyager, believe me, you need to see this stuff to understand what the hell we were talking about. There's really no spoilers here until you see it. So, check it out. Enjoy Voyager. I think it's a severely underrated Star Trek show. I mean, compared to the others, like, it just doesn't get given its due. I understand some of the complaints about it, but at the same time, it's fucking awesome. So go for it. Anyway, ladies, thank you so much for doing this.
It was fun.
Yeah, any parting thoughts you want to get out there, or?
I just can't wait to watch all the Borg shows.
All right, we're doing that. The Borg Collective, the Borg Collection. We're making this happen. So, anything, Ellen? You're good?
No, I'm all set.
All right. So, anyway, that's it.
Watch Voyager. Watch Star Trek. It's awesome.
Yeah, watch Star Trek all the time. And, of course, next Star Trek update will be next month, and who knows what that's going to be about. But we always have fun with it. So, anyway, I will see all of you on the other side.